What is going on, guys? I'm here to go over a draft that I just had. I picked third. I am Mack Attack over here. I just wanted to go over the drafting style I did and what mistakes I may have made. This is a points league, very balanced, so hits, block shots, plus minus, goals, assists, shots on goal. They all affect the points that you get, and then for goalies it's based off pure performance, and it's pretty, I think, balanced overall. So let's get to it. Who I thought drafted the best, or maybe just players that I think I picked pretty well, or players that I maybe have made a mistake on that I really regret picking in certain situations. So let's get right to it. So it first comes off to me at 30. I think Leon Draisaitl got off the board pretty early, McDavid, and then McKinnon. So now this is a position league, but there is a utility spot, so that makes it a little bit different. I think you really want to lean more towards the wingers if you can. But again, I think McKinnon was the best available. I think he's got a pretty big margin on Kucherov, who would have been my next pick. So I'm pretty happy to take McKinnon at number 3. And clearly I labeled my or named my team after him, so that had effect on that. After that, I think the draft went pretty standard. Victor Hedman went way too early. I think Braden Point is my friend. He made, I think, a little bit of a mistake there. But then it goes to Nate D. Great. He drafted a goalie. This is a guy that I'm not too familiar with, but he drafted a goalie and a top end left wing right away. I think he had the best start to the draft. I think having Connor Hellbuck and Alex Ovechkin, two guys that are proven to be really good in this specific format that I created, is just a pretty good base point for your team. And then you have my girlfriend here who actually drafted in this league as well. She drafted Mitch Marner and she drafted Andrei Vasilevsky. Um, I think that was a good start for her at least. I mean, I'm not really the biggest fan of Mitch Marner, but I think Andrei Vasilevsky is a very good pick. And then when it comes to me at number 10 in the second round, I go ahead and go with Mika Zibanejad. As you can see, these are all the players that were behind him. You had Jake Guentzel, Andrei Svechnikov, Evgeny Malkin, Igor Shesterkin, the guy that I'm a really big fan of. And then you had John Tavares, Roman Josi, a lot of these other like elite type of players that I could have gone with, but I decided to go with Mika Zibanejad just because I think he is a top tier 2 forward. I think him and Stamkos are pretty close together in terms of point totals and skill total. But I ended up going with Mika Zibanejad, and I did have my eye on Pastrnak just because I do value him as the most valuable winger in the draft. But again, he's going to be injured for half of this league, and my league is only going to have 11 weeks, and I just realized now that he's probably going to be out for the first 5 or 6 games, so I will only have him towards the second half of the season. But I think I can survive till then. Now, because it's an 18 playoff and a 12-team league, but after that, it comes down to me in the third round, in the third round, third pick, I go with David Pastrnak. I'm pretty happy. I would much rather have Pastrnak than either of these two guys. Really happy with getting Pastrnak here. After that, it goes pretty normal. I think Jake Guentzel goes off the board. Andrei Svechnikov, Malkin, Shesterkin, John Tavares, Roman Josi, Steven Stamkos. So all the big targets that I would label as top end players. I'm surprised by how well people drafted behind me. I did not expect it. So, also goalies went by pretty quickly. We had Frederick Anderson gone. We have Igor Shesterkin. We have Samsonov, Hellebuck, Qdobin, and we have Andrei Vasilevsky. So after all the goalies went early, I knew my strategy was to try and get as many of these elite forwards as I can before they all slip or as they all fall. So after I went to round 4, I noticed that Brad Marchand was falling a lot just because of his injury concerns. He's labeled as out, but I didn't really fear that because I knew he was going to be coming back within the first week or two of the fantasy format. So, or the start of the season. So I was really happy to get him here at number 10 in the 4th round. I think that's a huge steal. I think that's the steal of the draft for me. Aside from having Pastrnak in the 3rd round, I'm really happy with both those guys. I think I got the Brad Marchand David Pastrnak combination. I think that'll kill it for me in the later half of this season. I think my forward depth is really strong now. Even if Mika Zibanejad does not put up the numbers that he's expected to, and I still have my doubts about him just because I know he had an outlier of a season last season. But I'm really hoping he can become a 40 goal, 40 assist type player with Panarin still on his team. So after I get Brad Marchand, I was so excited. I think this is where I make the mistake. After Brad Marchand goes, Quinn Hughes, Tuukka Rask, Patrick Laine, and Johnny Gaudreau go, I end up picking Dougie Hamilton. Now, I think this is a big mistake just because I think there were better players available. I looking back at this pick, I'm actually pretty upset with myself because I think I could have picked better. I think Patrice Bergeron in general is a better player than Dougie Hamilton. I think overall, even though I would have the Boston three there. I just think that he's a better player. I also think Robin Lehner might be the better player, but again, I'm worried that he might not get as many starts, and I think that I could have take advantage of the forwards that were available. But I think Dougie Hamilton here, again, even though I have him labeled as so high, I still think there's so much risk involved with taking a defenseman this early. And even if I'm just praying that he does as well as he did this past season, I don't know if that'll really benefit me a whole lot compared to the risk that I'm taking with him. I think there were players like Taylor Hall available that I could have taken, a winger that would have helped me out a lot. As you can see later in the draft, though, I am weak on the right wing. But yeah, I think Dougie Hamilton was my biggest maybe mistake, but I still don't think it was that big of a mistake if it was really that much of a mistake at all. And then I noticed that I was kind of desperate on goaltending after this, so I was kind of waiting for a goaltender. Darcy Kemper went off the board. Carey Price went off the board. Torrey Krug went off the board. Miro Heiskanen, Tyson Barrie. A lot of these defensemen that I didn't really want anyways. So I'm really happy that I might have gotten the first defenseman off of this train that kind of went. I got the best defenseman, I think, out of all these guys. But after these guys went, Tristan Jarry went right off the board right before I could take him. That's the guy I really wanted. I'm happy to take Markstrom, though, because he is a starting goalie. He was really the only legit starting goalie that will most likely have a huge impact for his team. So I ended up taking Markstrom in the 10th pick in this 6th round. I'm really happy to get him there overall, but again, I think I might have been happier with the Tristan Jarry or even if a Carey Price fell to me. I mean, I know I talked to Crease Monkeys after this, and he said that he was actually waiting for Carey Price to drop as well, so I don't think I would have gotten him either way. So after these players were picked, Brock Boeser is a unique pick. I think he's actually might have a bounce back season this year. Rasmus Dahlin came in, Zach Werenski, and then I went with a forward again just because I wanted to secure the winger position. Just because my first two picks were centers, and I think I need to really structure my team in offensive setting. Just because people are not picking the forwards that I'd expect them to take. I think that people picked way too early with again with defense and goalies. So I'm trying to take full advantage of that, and I take Brady Tkachuk. I'm proud of that pick just because I think Brady Tkachuk will be a hit leader again, but there's still a lot of questions with how he's going to perform in terms of goals and assists this season. But I think with Dadonov on his team, he's going to perform even better. I think he'll get more point totals overall. So there's some hope there, but again, I'm not really expecting all that much improvement from Brady Tkachuk, but if he can stay the same way he was last season, I think he will pan out as an all right pick here in the 7th round. Aside from that, the draft went kind of what you'd expect it to be. Alex Debrincat, Tony Deangelo going. I was also a huge fan of Tony Deangelo, as my friend was, and he picked Claude Giroux as well. Very good player depth. I think that was a pretty good pick by him. Pretty good 2 picks for him. And then obviously my girlfriend picks Philip Forsberg, and she also picked Ivan Provorov. I did not help her out at all. I made her pick these guys. I think they were pretty good overall, but she likes Nashville with Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi on her team in the first 8 picks. Aside from that, I went with Jose Saros was the next goalie I wanted. I really like Saros just because I know he's going to be starting in Nashville. I know he's going to produce at least mediocre on that team. I think he'll give me okay stats. I don't really. I know looking back at my videos of goalies, I wasn't really the biggest fan of him, but again, I'm just trying to get just to survive on these goalies just because of how many goalies were picked so early in this draft. I think it was ridiculous how early people pick goalies. So now I'm actually kind of trying to make up for the goalie situation now with Saros as my second goalie. And then I get Mark Giordano with my next pick. Mark Giordano is another, he's up there for defenseman. I'm really happy to get him. He's a really good number 2 defenseman, I think, in a 12-team format. I'm pretty happy with my defense overall right now with Dougie Hamilton, Mark Giordano. I think that's good enough to make my team at least mediocre right now. Although Mark Giordano does have his concerns with his age and stuff like that, I'm really hoping he just kind of kills it again this season. But it's gonna be asking kind of a lot. I think this is probably the last season I'd probably take Mark Giordano pretty high in the ninth round. I think that's pretty high for what his age is. I was also thinking about like an Evander Kane or someone, but he slipped off the board. Next pick, Neil Pionk is another good player that had my eye on. But yeah, once these players went, nothing really slips to me. Jacob Trouba, Shea Weber went. He was another player I was looking at. Timu Meyer, another player I was looking at. And then Dylan Larkin went before I could take him. Although I wasn't really looking at him, I was trying to secure my third goalie, which is Mackenzie Blackwood. I know he had. I was trying to throw a bunch of darts at a dartboard, if that's what you want to call my goalie situation here. Is a lot of these goalies that I'm picking are goalies that I think could really perform well this season or get a lot of starts this season, but they're really trying to break out of their role that they're in currently right now. So I took 3 goalies right away. Really happy with the goalies that I did pick, though, in like the mediocre territory. But I'm really hoping to hit at least with one of them. That would be Blackwood, Saros, and Jacob Markstrom. I think Markstrom is more of a for sure thing, and I think Saros is going to be getting a lot of starts this season. But Mackenzie Blackwood probably had the best season out of all those goalies last season for a fantasy point perspective. So I'm really happy to get him as well. There weren't really any forwards I was really dying to have at the time. But then I ended up going with a forward in the next pick, Mike Hoffman. I'm really hoping he gets signed. Again, this is an early draft, so we really don't know where he's going to get signed or how he's going to do this season. I really hope he gets signed with some offensive team. I really hope a team like Arizona doesn't sign him, or else Mike Hoffman might be deemed useless. But I'm really hoping he gets on one of those offensive powerhouse teams. Maybe, I don't know, hopefully like Winnipeg trades Laine and signs Mike Hoffman or something. Something crazy. But those are my hopeful wishes. So I ended up taking Mike Hoffman here. He was one of my top end tier 3 forwards. So I've got some pretty good forward support right now. And then my defense is just mediocre, and my goaltending situation is it is what it is. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but it's more of just like a, a random assortment of players right now. So after the this round goes through, Lafreniere goes off the board here. He is a good pick, but again, I don't know if I really want Lafreniere just because of how crazy he could be. Like he could be a really good pick. He could be a really bad pick. I don't know. Um or I mean we none of us know about like how good he's going to be this season. So after he goes, Elvis Merzlikins goes, a really good goaltender for Columbus. I probably maybe could have picked him as well. He was definitely in one of the spots with Mackenzie Blackwood that I could have picked him. Matt Duchene, Ryan Ellis. Ryan Ellis is another good defenseman pick. Logan Couture, a good center pick here. I go with Tom Wilson just because of how much he hits. In my league, hits is pretty balanced. It's not like it takes over the league. So again, I'm still relying on him to hit and shoot and get like at least 50 points this season or like whatever he's been averaging the past couple seasons. I think if he maintains that, I think he'll have a pretty mediocre season. just like what you'd expect from him. Darnell Nurse goes off the board, another good pick. Nick Suzuki, a really good pick for Montreal. Colton Parayko, another good defensive pick for where it's at right now. TJ Oshie, and then I go with Rasmus Ristolainen. I'm not proud of picking Ristolainen, but he's a player that I think I needed to pick. He's just a hard-hitting defenseman, and I was kind of desperate on defense. Looking back on it, I maybe could have just gone with another forward and said screw defense, because my defense situation is already like mediocre, maybe a little bit subpar, and I think I could have just let that go and picked a good, solid forward. And as you can see, the forwards that I really wanted, I think I made a mistake here by picking Rasmus Ristolainen, because Thomas Hertl goes, Anthony Mantha goes, David Perron goes. All these guys are players that I was eyeing on. Even Riley Smith was a guy I was eyeing on. So after this round 13 into the round 14, it kind of died out for me. Like, every player I really wanted got picked. I think if I were to redo this pick, I would pick Kyler Yamamoto or probably Anthony Mantha. That would be my pick. Kyler Yamamoto, though, is another player I really had my eye on. It's unfortunate that I didn't get any of these players, but my girlfriend did actually snag Anthony Mantha from me, which I think is hilarious, because I was eyeing him again, but she also just kind of picked out of a random hat, and she kind of looked at the players, and I don't know what she did, but she picked well for this pick. And then David Perron, another player I really wanted, a very good player that always puts up good fantasy points. Riley Smith, another good forward that will put up good fantasy points. Kyle Yamamoto, another one again. Atkinson was all right. And then I had Brian Rust here. Brian Rust, I mean, he had a phenomenal season last season, and he kind of performed all right in the playoffs as well, too, when he went into the playoffs with Pittsburgh. But I'm just really hoping he has a similar season. I'm just kind of hoping and praying that he does well this season. Again, this is kind of where you just throw, kind of try to get some luck box. Just throw a dart at a dartboard and hopefully you hit. In these later rounds, just because I can't really say that Brian Rust is going to have the season that he had last season. He had 54 points in like 55 games. It was incredible. But again, like, we don't know what Brian Rust's situation is. We don't know if he just had an amazing year or was just on a stacked line. Like, we don't know if he just got carried in. There are still so many questions there. And then it went down to me in the 15th round. I just ended up picking another forward, Kirill Kaprizov. He was another wild card pick. I'm just throwing another dart at a dartboard, and hopefully he hits. I think the safest pick here might have been Brock Nelson. I think that would have been the safest pick. But again, I'm not playing to play safe. Aside from him, I got Matt Murray. I tried to stack up on goalies again. I got a fourth goalie, which is not really a recommended strategy, but again, my goalie situation is so weird that I just ended up, I didn't like anyone that was left. Like, there was no one on the board left. Like, I'm not a big fan of Domi. I don't trust Kreider. I don't trust any of these guys in my lineup. So I ended up throwing it at Matt Murray, all my money on Matt Murray, just for the hope and a prayer that he pans out to be a goalie that starts. I don't know how I'm going to work my goalies, just because I've got 2 slots for goalies and they probably will play often. So we'll see about that. I might have to trade one or something. But then it came down to round 17, and I picked Jacob Chitron, another defenseman, to fill up my defense. So overall, I would say my drafting strategies, I think I had 2 mistakes with the Rasmus Ristolainen pick and the Dougie Hamilton pick. I don't even think the Dougie Hamilton pick is really that bad, but I think the Ristolainen pick was atrocious. I think I just kind of went with the flow and went with what I needed rather than best player available, and I think there were better players available on forward, and that's why all these teams kind of picked defense early is I think there were better players available. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on this draft. If you, I'm gonna post the draft in the in the comment section, or the description of the video. Feel free to comment if you like. Tell me how I drafted. If you thought I drafted an A plus, give me an A plus. Think I drafted a D minus, give me a D minus. I want to hear some feedback or what you guys thought about my draft. Thank you very much. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed what you saw.